Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and this map represents where I've been spending my summer space vacation in EVE. As part of the CFC, we are invading Fountain, because it has lots of assets, lots of resources which we wish to farm for our own profit. It's currently home to Test, which is based off of Reddit. We are based off of Something Awful, and we're hoping that our superior numbers and organisation will ultimately prevail, but they have allies. Regardless, what have I been doing during the time that I've been able to log in? Well, I haven't been able to log in much, so generally I log in and find the first fleet and do whatever it is. So in this case, I'm finding that I'm doing a lot of bomber fleets. Now, bombers are very nice. They're stealth bombers. They have a covert cloaking device and they mount battleship-sized weapons. And using Black Ops, they can sino bridge or across the star systems to arbitrary targets without using jump gates. And that's me basically doing a covert sino jump or covert sino bridge helped by the Black Ops. That is, of course, the new transition effect that added in Odyssey. Anyway, upon arrival, I end up in the middle of a large group of bombers all attacking a sovereignty blockade unit. Now, if you don't know, sovereignty blockade units are what are dropped when you're trying to attack a system. You need to drop these and online them. It takes 6 hours to put them online, and if you have sovereignty blockade units at all the gates in a system, and in this case it's 3 gates, then the target, the territorial control unit, becomes vulnerable and can be attacked, and so you can gain the system. So I spent a lot of time bridging around in stealth bombers, killing these things. We have something like 150 in this fleet. That's a Galenti Nemesis firing Nova torpedoes, the thermal damage they get a bonus to. And they're not using bombs, we're just using torpedoes in this case. Bombs are not ideal. That is a Caldari Manticore firing Scourge, that's kinetic-based torpedoes. The Caldari is one I've spent most time in, but this was me flying my Hound in this case because that was what was on the market. It uses explosive damage torpedoes, and that is an Amarian Purifier firing EM damage, that is Mjolnir or whatever torpedoes, I think. So yeah, you can see just the torpedoes raining in from every single angle, and that, yes, was the SBU going down. So once it goes down, what do? Well, we admire our handiwork, and of course we then warp off as a fleet towards the next one so that we may send it to the same fate. Because we have a large fleet, the commander will basically warp us across, and that's what you're seeing here. And I've actually brought up the fleet overview so I can actually see how many people are with me, just for this. There is the new SBU which we're landing on. It wasn't far to go. Locking it and starting to rain torpedo death upon it. Yes, it'll take about half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour, depending upon the number of bombers we can field. And really, this is a really nice, efficient way of doing things because it's very agile. Fleets come through and we can swiftly jump from one target to another without worrying about being harassed. They basically forces the enemy to guard these things forever. And of course, once the whole thing's over, we can all jump back. This is another Black Ops, which is going to bridge us back to the target, so we can see an epic jump out of a whole fleet. If you've never seen covert jump bridge going on, watch those blue flashes sending themselves home halfway across the galaxy. Except half the fleet gets stuck behind because you can't fit enough fuel in a Black Ops for a fleet of this size, so we have to wait for him to refuel. I purposely waited a moment because I wanted to watch the fleet jumping out, and that meant that I get stuck in the second group. There we go, time to jump across the galaxy again. Back to our safe base in Cloud Ring. No, it's in J5. Yeah, we're in the Fountain region. We're bridging in from Cloud Ring, but we're one jump out. That was our bridgehead. Anyway, the other fleet I've been spending time with is Wolf Fleet. This is me flying a Wolf, which is a Tech 2 Minmatar assault frigate. However, after signing up and buying a pre-fitted wolf from the market, I realised that I didn't actually have the necessary rig skills. So you'll see my sensor damper is offline because I didn't have enough power to run it. Regardless, didn't matter because the guns work, and it's just pretty much a case of finding the targets that are being called by the fleet commander and shooting them. So this is a fleet of battle cruisers, nothing, they're all large things, and we are all in tiny little frigates, but we make short work of them here. It's a German fleet commander you can hear in the background. Look at that, doesn't that look great? It looks like a Rift or Swarm, but they're actually Tech 2, which makes them way better. These are battle cruisers, but with, even with the small weapons, we can kill them very, very quickly, simply because we have the numbers on our sides. Those spherical things going up, if you don't know EVE, those are called warp disruption bubbles, and they're very important for holding hostiles on the field. You put them down and nobody can warp in or out of those areas. So instead of having to individually target hostiles and hold them down with a warp scrambler or a warp disruptor, you can drop those in the field using an interdictor, and the targets cannot warp out. They're very important for things like supercapitals, where the only way to hold supercapitals down is by using warp disruption bubbles or with a heavy interdictor in their infinity point. So in this case, we're just holding down plain old regular cruisers and battle cruisers. This is a Drake, look at that. But they're just dying surprisingly quickly here. Pretty much I'm reloading to hit different kinds of ammunition, I think. Yeah, there we go, because the range was getting too far, so I wasn't really going to do damage using close range ammunition. So that meant at least I'm actually doing proper damage in this case. And you can see that as I go down the list, you get further and further out. There are targets out at like 73 kilometers as well. They're all staying on the field more or less. I'm literally just following the targets as they're being called off by the fleet commander. The standard technique in EVE is you basically farm up information with the fleet commander. That's called anchoring, and then you follow the target calling so that everybody fires at the same target and they don't have enough time to have their friends repair them using logistics. This works really well if you have high alpha weapons, so that the amount of damage with the first shot can overwhelm the shields and armor very quickly. It's a lot harder when you have frigates, because frigates don't have nearly the same amount of damage, but wolves are built like that. They have bonuses to projectile weapons, and artillery has a very high alpha in this case. But you'll see in some of these cases that the targets, I can't lock the targets quickly enough. There's a Tempest, that's a battleship, never mind a battle cruiser, and it is going down very quickly. I'm not firing at it, these are my friends. I'm missing some of the calls here just because it's kind of exciting and I make mistakes and everything. all that blue lightning flying across the screen, that's those warp disruption bubbles being laid down by our interdictors. Very useful to have on the field here. Interdictor is one of the worst jobs, or one of the jobs you're most likely to die in, because people really like to kill things that are stopping them warping. Interdictors are destroyers, they're Tech 2 destroyers, and they don't have nearly the hit points of many of the other Tech 2 ships. So they're very easy targets. They are, however, relatively agile, and that does help them a little. Heavy interdictors as well are bigger and tougher, but they also die pretty darn fast. There is a Scythe in this case. Scythe is a Minmatar logistics ship that's used for repairing other ships. You see these things dying just really quickly. That Jaguar, it's out of range, so I can't lock onto it. I'm trying to lock onto these capsules, but literally there are other people killing these targets faster than I can. And, well, that's it practically over. This Jaguar is warping away. There's only one guy in a Scythe, and everybody's running towards him to try and tackle him. These guys are... this is an Ivy League. This is an alliance that's related to EVE University, and they tend to do a lot of, simple Tech 1 fleets for training purposes. I think in this case they may have I don't know who they're fighting with, if anyone, at this time. But yeah, he gets killed and you see his pod warp out and everything's happy. But that was just generally cleanup. The really big story was the Baltec fleet. The Baltec fleet is Megathrons with railguns. And if I told you a couple of years ago that Megathrons with railguns would be a major strategic fleet choice in EVE, then you would have laughed at me. But now, yes, we have a whole fleet of Megathrons sitting on this pause here, ready to jump bridge out via the Titan. Megathrons, being battleships, can't actually jump out on their own, but using a Titan, the Titan can generate a jump bridge, and there it's going. We're all jumping across the galaxy. Giant red Sino fields. Notice this is red because this is not a covert Sino, this is a regular Sino. Now we're jumping into 3WE, which is where Test and their allies got a large number of capital ships stuck and tackled. Now I've chopped out a large part of that. It took about a minute to jump in, and when I jumped in, it was 10% time dilation. That meant that everything was running 10 times slower than normal. With time dilation is a thing in EVE where they slow down time for everyone. And this is good because in the past, time dilation didn't exist. Everyone would get hit randomly with lag, messages would get dropped, and some people would just not get any response while others would be having a great time. Time dilation kind of tries to purposely slow things down to even up the behavior for everyone, so everybody gets lousy performance. So I've switched my fleet over to Lazarus Telraven's fleet, and now I'm ever so slowly trying to align for warp, and it does seem to take an eternity. This is accelerated by a factor of 4 from what I was experiencing it, but it's 10 times slower. This is utterly awful, running at 10 times slower than normal speed. And everybody's warping off at different speeds. Once you jump in, one of the first things you want to do is randomly head away from the jump in spot, because bombers will quite regularly warp in at 30 kilometers and drop a bunch of bombs. And if a fleet doesn't get off the Sino, they can be in serious trouble, because a number of well-aimed bombs can do wonders, can do miracles against a fleet like ours. Anyway, skipping forwards a little again. This is me coming onto the field now, and everything's going really slowly. That effect that's spinning around my ship is they're tracking enhancers and or tracking computers and sensor boosters to help my weapons work better, basically let me lock targets at a higher distance and shoot faster. So there we go. All those things on the overview are hostile targets. There is a rock fleet on grid. There's a bunch of Celestis, Scythes, rocks. There's sinusural beacons everywhere. And they are in the process, as I was landing, they were trying to evac the battleships. So the battleships were in the process of warping out, and we start killing them as I arrive on grid, but as soon as I get a target locked, it's dying. It's the typical problem with goons, is basically as soon as you target something, everybody else has shot it. So fleet commanders need to pick and name targets 2 or 3 targets ahead so that everybody is locking them quickly enough, and then the limiting factor becomes gun cycling time rather than the ability for everyone to lock. But anyway, what's happening is they are literally warping out their battleships, and all that's left is the capital ships that are stranded in these bubbles. We keep laying bubbles down here, and you can see, look at all those weapon systems firing. Those are railguns, right? This is what the Megathrons are all armed with. Megathrons are Gallente battleships. They get bonuses to hybrid weapons, which means railguns and blasters. For a long time, blasters were kind of the weapon of choice on Megathrons, but even then Megathrons were kind of derided as not being the most amazing ships. That ship in the middle there is a Revelation, which is an Amarian dreadnought. So look, we're now aiming, well, I guess I'm firing at this guy called Derivative Mind. And I got my drones out, which is slowing things down. You can see my capacitors being drained, so I cut off my micro-warp drive. Really, going fast isn't going to help me in this case. It's just a question of whether I get targeted or not. But with no hostile battleships on grid, there is nothing they can attack us with. Those dreadnoughts, they have guns, but they track far too slowly to hit anything. Now, one thing to notice is that because of the horrendous lag, my weapons start getting stuck in this red flashing mode. Red flashing means that it's finished its cycle, but it's not giving me control back of the weapon, so I'm sitting here unable to fire at my next target. So I start to try to think what to do. One of the old things you used to be able to do, one of the things you can do is adjust your modules on the screen there, and that helps. So you can split modules using the module split button, and that helps. And I try that, but that is far from perfect. Oh look, I get ready to fire again. I get control back. Ah, come on. Oh, there, they split out, but now I face the problem that I have, 7 guns to fire instead of 1, and that just makes more lag. I see this guy in the Nagelfar going down, so I think I just make a point of shooting 1 gun at him. Nope, I don't. It's hard to tell because I'm having to do post-commentary on this. Who is it I'm trying to target? Scandalous Wench in Amoros, a Galente dreadnought here. Oh no, I'm revealing secrets here. Yes, my railgun setup. Fall off out to 64 kilometers, not bad. So yeah, I have 1 shot. I fire a bunch of weapons at Scandalous Wench, but that doesn't help me. They are doing damage, but you see that I'm still getting stuck in this, this locking mode. This is... the dreadnoughts are making rather short work, or are not lasting particularly well against this fleet of battleships. I don't know how many people we had on grid. Ultimately, this battle involved 3,200 people. It really started with, more or less absolutely nothing. It started out, actually, I believe, with a small newbie fleet that was guarding a location where Test had logged out a bunch of carriers, and they get attacked by an armor hack fleet. They were driven off, and from there, the CFC brought in more fleets to counter them, and other fleets came in from the other side, and eventually the whole thing escalated, and there were capitals on grid, and at some point we got the upper hand in 3WE, and we just started shooting things. Now you can actually see 3WE in the bottom left in the little map. You see this system that connects with 4 others. It's kind of a little nexus. It's good to control this system, I guess, because it's a kind of strategic linchpin. If we can keep people from flying through there, it will help a great deal. And there's me now trying to regroup these guns here. This is another trick that I discovered is, again, rearranging these things helps, but I'm currently not firing because I can't group my weapons anymore. Another trick I found is to, not to ungroup, but to turn off auto-repeat. And for some reason people were linking Marlona Sky's Nyx kill from Flight of 1,000 Rifters. I've no idea why, but I brought it up because I was semi-proud having paid for that and covered that. I was going to tell people that because chat actually works rather fast no matter how lagged you are. Oh look, there's a capital exploding. Beautiful. Yeah, you can see the thing pausing and glitching as the thing was loaded incredibly. So yeah, we're down to not many capitals left. Approaching Herp. Yes, that's what I'm doing. So still trying to cancel this thing, and I'm trying to reload. Nope, doesn't work. Trying to drag my adaptive nanoplating in there so that it clears the thing, and now I'm trying to regroup my weapons again. Just by dragging them. Come on. No. Maybe. Oh, no. Now it's really confused. Now it's splitting them. First rule of Baltic Fleet is that all your weapons should be grouped for lag reasons. Lag is bad, and having ungrouped weapons does not make for a healthy fight. We like good fights, and while we may be not making as much progress as we'd like, we are getting lots of good fights, and good fights are good to have. Yes, those are friendly capitals on the grid. There was a few of them that we had to keep alive, but once we killed their capital ships, it was pretty much a formality. Dreadnoughts are pretty good at killing other capital ships. They're primarily for sieging star bases and posses and stations, but they can be very effective against other capital ships if they're held in place and they have tracking enhancement and everything going on. Hey, I got myself some more weapons. So now because I have the auto repeat turned on, I literally had to sit here, fire the weapons, and then click again in another minute or however long it was. Had to fire each round manually. And I kept on forgetting. That's what lag does to you. Not lag, it's time dilation. Oh man. So who's next? Is this the Moros? Oh, Damian Black Knight. It's dead. Hartley in a Moros. And Rifter Drifter in a Revelation. Derivative Mind in a Chimera. And I can't read this one. And he's dead. Doesn't really matter. It's nice to watch these explosions. So yes, that is what I've been doing over the summer in EVE so far. The Fountain War is going relatively well. Our coffers are full. Our reimbursements are happening. I've not lost a ship myself, but that is mostly because I've been fortunate to be in the correct fleets. Regardless, I wouldn't need reimbursement. I actually donated 500 million credits to the first bomber fleet I was in, because it was nice to hang out with people and have fun and blow up inanimate objects. Regardless, I hope you've been interested as to what I've been getting up to in EVE Online. I'll hopefully do some more guide videos, but for now, I'm gonna say goodbye. Fly safe.